We'll be covering the 4 basic types of installations. The first and most common is what's called the L-type termination, where the unit is mounted on an exterior wall. We're going to come up 90 and go out through the wall. We've chosen our location, we've looked around, made sure that we don't have any plumbing or the air conditioning ducts coming down in the area. And typically we're going to mount our unit at about 5 foot. So we're going to measure up from the floor 5 feet, mark our line. And from this line we're going to use a level to go across, mark the top where our unit's going to be mounted, also measure off each side for our center holes, make it a little bit easier, and we can actually pre-install mounting screws before we actually hang the unit. Also from that mark we're going to measure up to the center of our L termination that will actually go out the wall. All right. So take our level here. Give us a reference line on the wall. And then we'd measure out each side for our mounting holes. Also measure up. Now, by the way, all these measurements are in the owner's manual. They're laid out. Distances between the mounting holes, distances from this line up to the center line of the L termination. But it's approximately 18.5 inches. So we're going to mark our center hole location there. And at this point, we would be ready to actually drill a hole through the wall. With a regular studded wall, we recommend actually going through with a 1/4 inch pilot bit. Depending on what you're actually going to use to go through the wall. In this case, we're going to be using a 5-inch hole saw. Makes a nice clean hole. However, that hole saw is not going to reach the outside. So with our pilot bit now, we actually have a reference point if we need to drill from the outside as well. Now that we've got our wall marked, we're going to go through with a 1/4 inch pilot bit. Since we're going to be using a hole saw, it may not reach the outside wall. There's no guesswork on the outside then exactly where to finish that hole. So we now have a reference point on the outside to drill a hole from outside. And we can also drop that hole a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch depending on wall thickness so that we have it pitched down towards the outside. That's so if there is any driving rain, water, you want it to run back out and not back into the unit. Now that we've got our pilot hole and we've got our drill set up with a hole saw, safety glasses on for eye protection, we're going to start drilling the hole through the wall. Also gives us a nice clean cut. And we have our reference point on the outside. So if in this case, it could actually reach, we could make our hole from the inside, but if it was a thicker wall and this wouldn't reach, we'd be making our hole from the outside. Now that we've got our hole on the inside, we can actually reach inside the wall. If there's any insulation, move it to the side and make sure there is no, one last check for wiring. And then we can make our hole from the outside. Or in this case, since we're using an angle drill, we could actually reach from the inside all the way out. We've confirmed there's nothing inside the wall, and now we're going to finish our hole on the outside, from the inside to the outside. Now we finished drilling a hole on the outside from the inside, and we would be ready to install our L termination. Now that our hole is drilled, we're actually going to take our tape measure and measure the overall thickness of the wall from the outside to the inside, and we've got approximately 5 inches here. We need that so that when we install our termination, we're going to measure off the inside flange out so our intake is a minimum 1 inch past the outside wall. Okay. Once we have that set, there is one small hole that has to be drilled for a sheet metal screw. And when drilling this, be careful that you don't go in too far, because the exhaust is inside of that intake. But we're going to put a screw in there to set that so that this no longer moves in or out. And at that point, we can actually install our flue through the wall and then secure our flange to the wall, depending on the wall type, what type of fasteners you're going to use, whether it's sheet metal screws or concrete anchors. The bottom portion is also telescopic. So that we're going to pull down when we have our unit mounted, and it will plug in right on top of the unit. We always want to put this in first. As you may have noticed before, there's quite a bit of dust and debris. We don't want that to actually fall into the unit. So we install our termination first and then hang our unit. Now we're going to secure our flange to the wall. One of the things about this flange is that it's actually beveled, so it forces pitch down towards the outside. This top portion is actually thinner than the bottom. The last portion of this installation is the outside flange. This does need to be sealed to the wall so that you don't have any water infiltration from rain or water running down the wall, and it should be a exterior grade silicone type sealant. And now that we've got this mounted, we're also going to put in our 2 mounting screws for the unit. Now initially we marked our wall, and then we also marked our centers for the mounting screws. We're going to install those but not tighten them up all the way. We're going to leave a little space so that we can push the unit on and drop it down over those screws. As you notice, they're sticking out about 1/4 inch. That'll give us plenty of room to hang our unit, and then we can tighten them afterwards. Now we're ready to hang our unit onto our studs and screws that we've got mounted in the wall. With the unit now hanging on our screws, we're going to pull down our exhaust and intake, line it up, and lock it in. As you can see now, that won't come off. We can now level our unit off, install our bottom screws, and tighten up our top screws. And at this point, we're ready for our gas, water, and electrical connection.